the most interesting virtual Jewish museum in the country. And Thursdays at 3 is proving to be one of our more interesting programs along in our menu of virtual programs. I want to very much thank our sponsors for the Thursday at 3 program, Dan and Merle Weiss, who are on with us today. Thank you so much for your support of the museum in general, and in particular of this wonderful program. I just want to say, since I probably won't speak to you at the end, if you enjoy your afternoon with us, please, please, please go to our website. I will ask Nancy or Luna to type that in the chat. And please consider becoming a member of our museum family. It's only with our museum members and donors that we're able to keep going as a virtual museum, and then again when we're able to open, and we very much appreciate all of you. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to our wonderful curator, Jacqueline Goldstein, to continue her conversation with our very special guest, Typoe.
Thank you, Susan. Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to, number one, host Typoe, and number two, to be with you guys today for this episode of Thursdays at 3. With us today, we are in public art, Miami gallery opener, founder of Primary Projects, and many different things, album covers, work with Adidas, really a multifaceted, exciting guy. And Typoe, I know you grew up in a family of artists. What can you tell us? So let's start with there. Tell us about your background.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Miami. And I guess first I just want to say, again, thank you so much for having me here. And I always enjoy our phone conversation. So this is great. It's like the next level. I think that I grew up, can you see me? My thing is frozen.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, we're good. So I grew up in Miami. My dad's from Cuba. My mom's from Rochester, New York. I have 2 older sisters, so I'm the youngest. And yeah, I grew up down south, like in Coral Gables. And I don't know. I mean, where do you want me to start?
So who were the artists in your family? Who were you influenced by the most?
Well, so my mom is a painter. She was a painter a lot more, and then she transitioned permanently into mosaics. And growing up around the house, it was cool because she would paint. I remember walking around as a little kid. We would have these sort of like in a hallway or like the laundry room where we didn't have a window. She would paint a window looking outside into like this pretend world. And I always would look at those things, and it was just like this little moment that was sort of like an escape for me. And so I always just grew up seeing that. And then, I mean, my parents collect art, actually. Mostly, it's funny because our taste is the exact opposite. Like everything they have is either sort of like sculptural artifacts from like Africa, from like tribe kings and stuff like that, or they have sort of like a lot of Afro-Cuban or a lot of just sort of Latin American art, whereas like their house looks like a museum basically with like fossils and stuff everywhere, where I'm very like linear, very clean, very precise. Like I like everything black and white. My house kind of looks like a gallery. But yeah, and then my older sister is an artist as well. She's a painter, and my great aunt was a sculptor, and she would hand sculpt marble and stone.
Wow, that's pretty. Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, wait, it cut out for a minute. I don't know what's going on.
Jackie, we lost you for a moment. Just continue. Lost her again.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're here.
Okay. So you started, tell me about beginnings with art. Did you start with public art outdoors, or what was your beginnings?
Well, you know, when I first started, I didn't go to art school. I knew that school was never really the path for me. I mean, I honestly, I tried dropping out by the time I was like 14 years old. Like, I just knew I wanted to make art. I wanted to try, like when people would ask me like, oh, wait, what are you going to do when you're older? Like, I want to travel the world and I want to make art. That's it. Like, I was born to just make things, and that's all I've ever wanted to do. I don't know if I have a skill set for anything else. Like, if I could never be in a cubicle, I could never, like, I would probably end up living in a cardboard box if I couldn't create things with people, you know?
Good. Okay. So you're where you need to be.
Yeah. So in the beginning, you know, it was, I always liked the sort of romantic idea of like studying under people, you know, and having understudies, like how they would do in like the Baroque period and things like that. So I would just hang out with gallerists and artists that were already established and just try to learn from them, you know, and try to like take in their knowledge, because these were people that were working in the actual market and in the world. And I wanted to understand what that was. I didn't really want to go to a place where I had to pay for it. And then like for them to read me books when I could just buy all the books and read them myself, and then just learn more like the street smarts of how everything, like, why is art important? Who says art is important? Like, who says this thing is important rather than this thing? And like, I really just wanted to understand the sort of landscape of all of it. So to do that, I really just started at the bottom. Like, you know, I started hanging out at Spinello Gallery, which is originally who represented me in the beginning. And I would literally take out the garbage, paint the walls for free, work there, help hang the shows, like do everything. When he had to go do sales calls and stuff, I would stay there and keep the doors open. And I just put myself in positions where I knew this is where I wanted to be, and these were the people that I wanted to be around. So even though I wasn't making any money, I just did that while I was working other jobs.
Wow, that's that's like as an art historian by trade, we had to go work for free back in my day also, but at museums, copying 100 pages or, whatever needed to be done for free, we were doing it. And that was what it was.
Yeah, I'm definitely, I'm not afraid to put in work. Like I will do whatever I have to do to learn, because like all I care about is like, hopefully making a masterpiece or two in my lifetime. That's really it. So whatever I have to do to learn and grow and all that other stuff, like, sure, I got time. Why not?
Why not, right? Let me ask you, speaking of masterpieces, I know you're involved with the beginnings of Wynwood Walls. Can you tell us about how that came out?
Well, so in Wynwood, when we, it was probably, I don't know how long ago it was. It was probably like 15 years ago or something, but it was really before, when we started our mural program in Wynwood. At the time, like the early days, there was Objects Art Space, which was on the edge of Wynwood. There was Locust Projects, which is now in the Design District. And then there was Brook Dorsch Gallery. And then everything else is like what we were talking about earlier. It was like sewing shops. It was like a lot of different things. Like there was only 15 people that went there, and we would all walk in a group from one gallery to the next. So shortly after that, when Basel was just really becoming popular and everybody was really excited that it was in town and started picking up traction with like the community, my business partners, Books and Christina, and I, they started the first year, and then I jumped on the second year. And it was basically just out of necessity. Like, we weren't the breadwinners of our galleries. We were also like, super young. We didn't know what we were doing, and we just took to the streets because it was kind of natural. And so, we had a couple collectors and some friends and clients that kind of helped fund certain things. We got sponsorships. We brought some artists in, but I mean, it was really slow. Like the first year was like a handful, maybe 10 people. The year after that, when I got on, I didn't even get invited to participate or help with them. I just said, okay, I'm going to take this artist and I'm going to take them to get their paint. I'm going to set up their mural space. I'm going to do it. And I just started working because that's just what I do. I saw something that needed to get done and I just did it. And around those times, murals were lumped in with advertising. So murals were actually illegal in Wynwood. So people, there's maybe 6 murals at the time, like in the first year or two, and that were still up, and people were getting fined every day until they took it down. And so what happened was I painted on the side of the Margulies collection. I did a massive mural that's like, it's like a 2 or 3 story building. And the city called Marty and they said, hey, listen, you need to take that down. And him, you know, being a badass, but also one of the biggest art collectors in the world, called me, said, Typoe, I'm taking the city to court. Are you down? I have a team of lawyers. And I was like, totally down. Let's do it. So we go to court. The city doesn't show. Basically, from there on, we won. And from that December on, which I think was our 3rd or 4th year, we took the entire neighborhood and completely covered it with murals. We had sponsors flying people in. I mean, we had people coming in from New Zealand, from Africa, from Asia. I mean, from all over the planet. And we were looking at Wynwood, sort of like this topographical map where it's like, you know, you're curating a show in the museum. We're like, okay, well, this can go on this wall, but then it's also graffiti. So all these people from different places have beef with each other. So it's like, okay, he can be on this street, but this guy's got to be all the way on this street, because if they see each other, they're going to punch each other in the face. And then it was like, so it was all this, like, it was just, you know, politics like anything. But
so exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. It was dangerous. It was cool. It was like, and at that point, like, it wasn't cool to be doing this. Like property owners were saying, why don't you pay me to paint on my wall? Which is like, which now it's the brand of Wynwood. Like, people go from all over the world to go see it because they're like, oh, I want to take a picture in my like fancy red hat in front of this mural, you know? And it's kind of like, it's part of the brand. Like, every company that comes in, if it's like a beer company, they have like a graffiti beer can. And it's like this whole sort of funny thing that happened. And I think by byproduct of that, we didn't really realize that it was, you know, a catalyst for gentrification and then all this other stuff that kind of followed.
Well, I mean, it's to be expected. Any area that starts to get exciting is, you know, in a city is going to be totally gentrified. Let me pull up an image. I'm going to do a shared screen. And let's get over here. Slideshow. Okay, so let me just see if, here we go from beginning. So what can you tell me about this piece right here?
Well, that was a collaboration with the Italian fashion school, the Istituto Marangami, and that was with all sustainable materials. So I had to find things and then build this whole sort of outfit with these things.
How did you get involved in that project? What year was this first?
This was, I'm terrible with timelines, but that was like 2 years ago. And then, yeah, the fashion school called me because my studio is also in the design district, and their school, they opened a new school in the design district area. So they just saw my work and were just like, hey, we should work on a project together. And it was during our Basel, and like, you know, different people did different sort of outfits and things. And it was my first time doing something from scratch like that. Like, I've done designs for shirts or for fashion things, but not like this whole finding a bunch of garbage basically and putting it together to make this like fun thing, you know?
It's fantastic. Did anybody wear it?
No, it was just the mannequin that wore it.
All right, it's gorgeous. It's unbelievable. It says Versace, right? Is that in any way?
Yeah, well, I found all these play letters, and then I figured, I was trying to figure out what I could make with it, and then I was just like, this is hilarious. I'm making this Versace outfit out of garbage.
Did you ever hear from Donatella or anybody from the company?
Not about that.
All right, let's see what else we got here. What can you tell me about this? That's you, I'm assuming, right on the floor.
Yeah, that's me.
What are we looking at here?
So that's in the Brightline train station in downtown Miami, their main station. And then I was commissioned to do the whole interior of the station. So there's like multiple different, I think there's a couple pictures that you could see. I think if you click to the next, yeah. So it was sort of, I just used pattern, color, and design, sort of optical illusion to sort of push and pull people through the spaces as something that was like a transitional space. I really wanted to play with the flow of how people moved in and out, because it's like there's bathrooms and water fountains and people are running to their train, but that's also where like the food, and so people are going all these different directions in hallways and stuff. And I really wanted to kind of play with that movement using design.
And this is still up now. I mean, it was a commission, a permanent commission?
Yeah, that's a permanent commission.
Okay. How did you do that optical illusion of the circle?
I just painted it. I hand painted it. It was really me and 7 assistants, basically working for like 20-hour shifts for like 7 days straight.
Wow.
Yeah, it was awesome and intense, and we ate a lot of empanadas.
I mean, I have to get over there and see it. It's really, really amazing.
Thank you.
So was all a dream?
So that one was done in Los Angeles, and that was so basically I was working with Genius and Dropbox. You know who Dropbox is? That's the company that you put your files in.
Yeah.
But Genius is basically, they are like the major company that works with music, and they catalog every song and everything. So they threw a big art show, and you can't really tell, but that thing is like 24 feet long. It's really big, and it's a wood sculpture. And so we each got to choose an artist, and we got the rights to a lyric, and then we could make either an installation or some sort of art out of it. And then we had a big show with I think 8 or 10 artists in Los Angeles and downtown. And so this was mine. It was from a Biggie Smalls song. It was All a Dream.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that.
It's fantastic. Where in LA was it?
It was in downtown. It was just in like a big warehouse.
That's unbelievable. So what were so these are wood blocks?
Yeah, so it's basically, it's all built out of wood and then house paint.
Okay. An industrial setting. That's amazing. What are we looking at here?
So this was my show in Buenos Aires in Argentina. This was at the Faena Art Center. It's like their museum out there. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a gorgeous space. Like when you could see the rest of the space with all the windows and everything, it's like the light, the natural light that comes in there is just unbelievable. But so basically they approached me and said, listen, we have an opening for you, and we want you to propose a show. And that was it. And then so I was just like, okay, I know what the space looks like already. I was familiar with it. So they basically gave me all the freedom I wanted to do whatever. And this is what I came to them with. I think this was probably the first time that somebody has approached me in a really honest and real way and said, whatever you want, whatever your dream is, let's do this and let's make it happen and figure it out. And because normally it's like, okay, great, I can do whatever. I'm like making a painting or something like that. But this is like a museum. It's like a massive space. And for them to fund this whole project and bring me out there and do all these talks and amazing programs with kids and stuff like that, it was really just like a beautiful experience for me to see my work get to that next level. I think this was like 5-6 years ago.
So what is this exhibition about?
Well, so this exhibition was a little bit before the last election. And I remember there was just sort of a lot of turmoil and a lot of I just remember people fighting a lot. And I was just thinking, a lot of my work references sort of when the psychology of growing up, and being a kid. And I feel like I think it's as simple as a lot of people just did not learn a lot of things when they were children. You know what I mean? And I thought it was kind of funny thinking of it in a way where I remember playing with toys with my dad and my mom. And I remember having these things, and it's like, you learn spatial awareness. You learn how to share, you learn how to not destroy everything. And it's like basic childhood rules, like be nice to the person next to you. Don't touch somebody if you don't want them to. Don't be rude. If you have nothing nice to say, don't say it. It's like, I wondered how a lot of people were raised. So I wanted to build this sort of ridiculously extra large block world where people could kind of go on their own sort of journey as adults and still children, and kind of just like question that. Like a lot of the things with like there's like ravens and there's other things that I put throughout there, and that's sort of referencing death and sort of I like to think about death because it makes me sort of appreciate the time I have, you know, knowing that my time is limited. So it's kind of, it's fun and it's playful, but it's still, it has that sort of, I guess, darker side to it, which I think most of my work has a pretty equal amount of that light and dark balance.
Like kind of yin and yang, basically.
Yeah, and actually the ravens, I was reading a lot of Edgar Allan Poe at the time, and that's where I pulled those sculptures from. And since then, they've been like a reoccurring thing in my work.
He's pretty heavy, Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh man, so good.
So were people able to walk through this? Like I see in the background,
yeah.
kind of.
So that big thing in the background, you could go inside of it. It was like a house basically. So the whole thing had to be engineered so nobody got killed and put together. So it was really an amazing experience.
And I see the two pillars that look almost like, you know, a nod to marble. Was that a nod to your great aunt, or you just like the idea of the marble?
I think a little bit of both. I think really it was also a nod to sort of just like ruins and like our past. It's, you know, it's recognizing our past and then moving into our future. You know what I mean? I think it's always important to reference and look back at things and see what we did right and what we did wrong and how we can grow.
Yeah, 100%. And this is absolutely, tell me about this.
So this was done also in Miami with the Faina group at their Casa Claridge's hotel. Mm-hmm. And basically what I did was, the project was called Elevate, and it was in their elevator. And what I did was I outfitted the entire elevator in iron, so it was magnetic. And then I covered the entirety of it with magnets. And because, you know, a lot of the time when I'm trying to make something, I'm trying to solve some sort of problem or engage in a conversation like the last installation. This one, I think we can all understand when you're in an elevator and it's like it's awkward. It's weird. Where do I look? People are looking at their phone. Nobody says hi. There's no eye contact. It is the most drab transitional space that I can think of. It's, you know, there's anxiety, there's all these things. And I really wanted to solve that problem. So for me, because the hotel is on South Beach, I thought it was kind of like a hilarious joke to fill it with the magnets that are from all the souvenir shops. And so it's like, you know, I'm in Miami, bitch. And there's like little drinks and letters and all these funny things like manatees and palm trees and stuff. And what I found was, not only were people almost their eyes lit up when the doors open, but they didn't even get off at their floor. They would go up and down, taking pictures, playing, writing their name, you know, and to me, that was success. That was like, okay, I changed the function of this space. And a lot of the times that's kind of what I'm trying to do with my work, is like change the way, just look at things in a different way.
Do they still have this up?
No, it has been taken down, unfortunately. And I'm hoping to someday do this permanently somewhere. Oh,
it's fantastic. Where did you get all the iron from? I mean, you just told them, I want all this iron for the interior?
Yeah, I mean, I have fabricators. So we kind of designed the whole thing and laid it out and installed it. I have like amazing teams that kind of help me pull off all my ridiculous ideas.
I mean, it looks like a giant refrigerator door.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, it's really, really fantastic.
Thank you.
So it's what you set out to do is change the space. Do you feel like, you know, you had just said your work kind of sets out to change a space. I mean, do you feel like that today with other things that you do, other public art?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really try to make statements. I think with my work, I'm more just trying to ask questions and explore. I will never tell anybody that I'm the smartest person in the room. I don't know anything about anything. I'm just curious, and I'm a learner, and I'm always trying to learn and engage with myself and really like the world around me.
Yeah, it's very amazing. I'm going to go back to us stopping the share so we can see each other.
All
so
right.
Tell me about you founding Primary Projects and what it is here in Miami.
So my two partners, Books and Christina, and I, it was probably around, because we're just celebrating 10 years of being a gallery now. So in 2010 was sort of our last big mural push. Like 2009, 2010 was like the sort of like the hurrah of Wynwood for us, and everyone came, and it was a big thing. We rented almost every lift and machine in South Florida to have hundreds and hundreds of people here. We had over 8,000 spray cans sponsored and paint, and we had Beats by Dre and all these companies on board, and it kind of got to the biggest level that it could. And for us, that was it, and we needed to move on to other things because that just already happened, So we decided that because we didn't own all these buildings that we were doing murals on, we needed a space that we could control. And so that's when we decided that we needed to open a gallery. So we did that, and our first gallery was in the Design District. And we moved a number of times. We were in the Design District for a few years. Then we went downtown Miami, and then we went back to the Design District. And then now, we're permanently in Little River, where we, very grateful that we were able to work with Terrence Riley, who designed our building, and we built it from the ground up about 1.5 years ago. And it's like a dream,
What kind of art do you show there? Do you show your own work?
Yeah, I show some of my stuff there. Really, it's like emerging in mid-career artists that we work with. And we do, we're really heavy into changing the space a lot and being really hands-on and working with the artists. So we whenever we're working with somebody, it's always important to try to grow and challenge everybody in the space and say, like, okay, like, this is your shot at this room. Like, how are you going to do it? And like when the space was designed, because Terrence Riley, he used to work at the MoMA for 14 years. He was the head of the Miami Art Museum for a number of years. And he designs museums and art fairs. He understood that it can't just be like this rectangular warehouse looking box. And so our space is like this weirdly shaped space, it's beautiful, and it's also a fun challenge to show in. So we really try to like push people to always go above and beyond. But we show everything from painting to sculpture to full scale installation. And I think we have a hyper focus on public art. Like for us, it's very important to do like the museum acquisitions and to get into the top tier collections. And no question about it, like that is our goal, or one of our goals. But we are very public arts driven, and because I just think that it's important to engage with the community. You know what I mean? And it's like, for the people that are driving to work every day, going to the mall every day, going to eat somewhere, it's like, it's important to challenge ourselves to visually, you know what I mean? And if we're not in charge of visually what's going on around us and what's being shown to us, someone else is going to be in charge of that. And I don't know what that's going to look like. So I rather dictate what we're going to see and at least have fun with it and engage in artists and creatives and help them, live and put food on the table and help change cities and push things around. To me, that's definitely one of my major goals.
Are you doing anything right now with the county?
I have a few things, but I can't say because I have literally like 5 projects that are all in proposal phase.
All right, so forget it. Let's keep it quiet. What about, besides Wynwood Walls, what other projects? You'll keep us in suspense. What else? Public art.
Yeah, in terms of like what I've done around.
Yeah. What you've already done that we can know about. Let's put it that way.
So many things. It's like, I think the fun of art for me is I'm just a people person, you know what I mean? And I really like to work with people. So whether it's like doing an album cover for Skrillex or doing like a sweatshirt in all the storefronts in America and for Rag and Bone or whatever, designing shoes with Del Toro, like I like to work with people. I like to engage people. I like to just have conversations, you know what I mean? And be open and connecting. Like, I think if I were just making work by myself every day in a lonely studio somewhere, I would probably be really depressed. Mm-hmm. And like, I don't know if it was just growing up around family and having sisters, and there was just, and all of our friends were always around, and like, I'm just used to playing off of everyone else's energy and growing and challenging each other. And like, that's probably one of my favorite things. It's like my friends and I all critique each other and push each other. And without them, I feel like I wouldn't be anywhere near where I am now. Even people that assist me and work with me. And like, everyone has their own sort of background. Like, we all bring our own baggage, whatever that is. It's like we all walk into the room, but we all have a U-Haul full of shit following us. That's our baggage. And it's like, that's amazing because everybody has these different perspectives that I am not capable of thinking of because I'm just one person. So it's like, I always try to surrender to the conscious of like what everybody is feeling is right, you know?
Yeah. Speaking of feeling people, so you did the store for Rag and Bone, right? Where was that? Yeah. Was that for here in Miami?
Well, I did all the storefronts in the United States and in London.
Oh, for Rag and Bone.
For Rag and Bone. And then I painted a mural in New York for them. And then we did a release in a number of their stores with like some sweaters.
And how did that come about? They contacted you?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of my friends was a designer there, and then she connected me to some other people there. And I think most, you know, I'm never like looking for a job. You know what I mean? Like, I think part of the reason for like, I guess my success or whatever it is, whatever I would call it, is I really am just so curious, and I like to hang out with people. Like, I'll be hanging out with people that, you know, that do some of the biggest things I've ever seen in my life, or some of the biggest galleries in the world, or like, you know, some of the biggest billionaire collectors. And I'm not like, hey, like, buy my stuff. I'm like having dinner, nerding out. Like, oh my God, tell me about your design aesthetics. Like, what is your favorite like chair designer? And like, what do you like about architecture? And like, where do you like to travel to get away and look at nature? And like, to me, it's like, even it's funny because it's like, I normally don't say this a lot. I've only said this a couple times, but like, people are even like to the point where like, oh, let me buy a piece. And I'm like, yeah, we'll talk about that later. I don't really care. I want to talk about this other thing. That's because like, I just get excited to engage about like creativity, you know what I mean? And just connect. Yeah. And to me, that's more important, because if you're doing that and you're focusing on the relationships, I think number one, it makes for longevity. And it makes things that are real, that last, instead of sort of having like a facade, you know what I mean? Where it's just like, it's all about the business and it's all about, which is fine. Look, if I was selling, you know, if I had an avocado farm or something like that, that's what I would be doing. It would be like that, but I'm an artist, you know? So I make things, I create, I see the world and I see how I can add to it. And like, I'm lucky enough that I'm able to do this.
Excellent. How did you, I mean, you said you did all the Rag and Bones all over the place. How did you, for each set, were all the stores similar, or did you pull from each neighborhood?
Everything was the same. It was all similar. I made a series of designs, and then we basically templated it out for every single storefront and then sent it out, and all the people at each place installed it. So I didn't have to fly it a million times.
Okay, so you didn't have to go and oversee the installation.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of time with stuff like that, it's important because at first it's like, oh, they were looking at like sculptures and things and the blocks and all these, you know, the skull with all the stuff coming out, and they were like, oh, like this would be cool. And then, but it was so much, and I always try to think in a way where it's like, how can I make the most impact with the smallest amount? You know what I mean? Like, how can we be smart and tactical and do something great? Because, you know, we say this at the gallery all the time. I've seen some of the shittiest shows I've ever seen in my life done with like $1 million, $2 million budget. And I've seen some of the best shows in my life done with $0 with things they find in the streets. And it's like, it's really about putting yourself all in and not leaving any room for error, and really trying to connect with everything that I'm doing there.
So obviously widely successful if it was in, you know, all the stores.
It was cool. It was a fun project. And it was the first time doing something in terms of like fashion on that scale. And it was just fun, you know, because people would send me pictures from every different city and they're like, oh, I just saw this thing today and I saw your name. And I was like, oh, cool. You know, and it was exciting. And I love doing stuff like that because it's a challenge. And I like thinking in different ways when, you know, like the elevator, it's like, I like weird spaces. Like if I'm having a show and it's just in like a box, I'm like, okay, that's cool. But like, do you have a weird stairwell that I could do an installation in, or like some hallway that is unused that people absolutely dread walking into work with? And like, that's the space I want, like an alleyway with just dumpsters and stuff. Like I want to spend time in that space and then make it something a place that people never wanted to visit. I want to make it a place where everybody wants to be and spend time and just be.
Yeah, like that elevator. I mean, that's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. So it's whoever will give me the opportunity to do something crazy, I will do it. So it's like, I'm always just like looking and waiting for those. And they just happen, you know, by like virtue of like me doing it and then people seeing it and then be like, hey, I have this thing. Do you want to do something? And then it kind of, at this point, it's just like natural and it flows and stuff just kind of comes in, you know? I mean, obviously it's been a little weird since the apocalypse, but I'm not doing many installations while I'm sitting on my couch.
Right.
You know, but it's nice. I mean, the first thing that just got installed right now at the University of Houston, their public art collection, I just, a show that I was in Crystal Bridges. It's like an outdoor sculpture show that's touring museums right now. And that just got installed like a week ago. So it's like a bunch of the blocks that I did in Argentina, but they're made out of metal. So they're outdoors. So it's really beautiful. They're sort of near this like huge fountain on the campus and stuff like that. So kids can interact with it and people. And it's like a nice public space. Yeah.
So people are allowed to go there right now. I don't know.
Yeah, people are allowed to go on the campus and walk around, and people go jogging there and walking and eat lunch. And so for me, that's like, you know, again, like the public engagement, and especially in different cities. And it's cool because with the blocks, it's sort of dimensions variable. Like it could be put in a million different ways, and I do it different every time to test it out and see how people interact with them. So this is the third iteration. It was in Crystal Bridges Museum, it was in Artis Naples, and now it's at the University of Houston collection.
How long is it going to stay in Houston?
It'll stay there until probably the first quarter of 2021, and then I think it's finally coming home to Papa.
Are you going to put it anywhere when it gets back here?
I'll probably bring it to the studio, and then honestly, I'll probably just sell it. I don't know. I'm just waiting for it to get here so I can have it, because during this time, I guess is a good segue. During this time, during quarantine, I kind of took a little bit of a break, and I was like, all right, since a lot of jobs were kind of on pause in terms of like public art and stuff like that, I renovated my new studio. And then, so it's an indoor outdoor space. So it'll be like a sculpture garden where I can host dinner parties for clients and do fun, just sort of engagements. So I want to bring stuff like those blocks and things like that there and sort of create this little like sculpture environment that I can kind of be in, and that, you know, my friends can spend time in, and we can kind of just like, you know, have like a little Warhol factory vibe and just kind of chill over there.
I like that. Besides the elevator, what would you say is your most favorite crazy space you ever did?
Crazy space.
I should say the most outrageous space, or.
I mean, I think that was the most interesting. Like, I've done a lot of murals in weird area, like just like challenging walls, whether it's because of textures or where they are or weather or being up high. That was probably honestly my most favorite space, because it was so small and it was so difficult to figure out. Like, I really just like a challenge. Like, I like when I'm like, what the hell am I going to do with this space? Like, what, like you can't just go in there and put a painting on the wall. Like,
Right.
You really have to understand the functionality of what that space is and what that entails. And it's different, because like, when you're in a gallery, the functionality of it is to walk in and look at an art piece and say, okay, this is art. But when you're walking into a public space, it's like, it's a different conversation with different people that might not even have, they don't have the same vernacular. That it's just a different language altogether. And I like that. Like, I like being able to try to challenge myself to think for everything, even if it's something that's going on clothes, right? Like, if I'm doing like the Rag and Bone sweatshirt and I'm thinking of like, all the people in New York and in Houston and all these cities, like how do I engage these people, and how do I gauge like the national community instead of just hotel goers, So it's like every time is like this little challenge. Like, I always like these sort of, they're almost like imaginative, like hurdles that I have to jump over to sort of like get to the end.
Speaking of clothing, how did you get involved with Adidas? Your first one, for everybody who doesn't know, what did you do with Adidas?
Well, I did like store design stuff for them, and then I did like a really like a limited shoe, and we did a bunch of pins, and did I do anything else? I can't remember. I'm like all over the place. But yeah, we did that project, and my friend Monica, who's in Los Angeles, she has like an agency, Clear as Day, and they work with like all the major brands and stuff like that. And and I have a lot of friends that are sort of either have agencies or are sort of like private, like art dealers and things like that kind of like think of me, I think, for different projects. So like, I think they wanted to do something fun, something in Miami and engaging. And I think she just thought of me, which was really nice, and called me up and was like, hey, listen, do you have any thoughts on this? Are you interested? And then I was like, yeah, I mean, like, Adidas is awesome, and they do super fun collaborations with like Pharrell and with all these cool people. So I was like, of course I want to follow that.
Yeah.
So we did that, and that was like really cool. And hopefully, one day more happens. But that was super cool. And it's always interesting doing stuff like that, because it's, I'm working, the whole store is under construction. I'm doing murals. We're like thinking about pedestals and things for the space and like the windows. And it's just like, it's just like a madhouse. It's like people come in at the end and they're like, oh, it's like this perfect thing. And it's like, wow, it's a celebration. And it's like, but it was like madness and like fighting with construction workers to be like, dude, get your fucking scaffold out of the way. Like, I'm trying to work. And there's like, I'm playing music really loud. And then like the chief like was yelling at me, like, we don't listen to music on the job site. And I'm like, well, I do on my site. So either get out or get with it. And it's like, and you win some, you lose some.
What's your go-to music of choice?
I mean, it's all different. I mean, I listen to everything from like classical music to like R&B to like Southern rap to like, I listen to everything. I don't really listen to a lot of like techno or country stuff. Like, I appreciate the technical part of it, but it's just not like, I'm not like, hell yeah, let's go to that country club and like rock out. It's
Country Roadhouse.
It's just, yeah, roadhousing. It's just not really for me. But yeah, I listen to like a lot of classical and things that are just very like, that I could work with, just going on, that I feel like help me sort of like engage.
Yeah, good. I have a question here for you. It says, how do you balance commissions and projects that you do with commercial companies or high-end stores with more local and personal projects?
Well, I think there's like, I look at it as sort of like, I have the brands and the public work, and then I have sort of like the more like institutional gallery museum sort of stuff. And like they go hand in hand. But I think like for me, and I can even just kind of hint at, like, in terms of like how I use my time, the big public art projects monetarily do much, like they do really well for me. So I don't have to stress or take a lot of time. Like I don't have to stress out about like, oh my God, I need to make a painting and sell a painting today, because like I just did like a massive outdoor project for the last 3 months. And like, I don't really have to do anything else if I don't want to for a little while. But like now I can focus in the studio and say like, okay, like what is my next piece going to be? And like, what do I really want to make? Whereas like before when I was younger, like there was much more of like a hurry where I was like, oh, I need to make a piece. Like because I needed gas money and I needed grocery money and stuff like that. Whereas now I figured out a balance of really focusing on public large scale works, which also I just like big work. Like I like thinking big. I like walking around something. Like I like it where the work has its own personality. It's like its own person standing there. And once it comes out, it's just alive. And I really have no control. It's just like, once it's in the world, it's in the world. And really anyone that happens upon it in the public eye is going to bring their own past to it and think of it the way they want to think of it, you know?
Another question, origin of the name Typoe.
I got that name when I was young, when I was probably like 14 or 15. I was a troubled youth, as some would say, as my mother would say. And I was doing like graffiti and stuff like that with my friends and just a bunch of nonsense. And one of my older friends, it was actually my sister's boyfriend, who also did graffiti and kind of like schooled me into that world. I was looking for a name and he kind of gave that to me. And that was like the name that I kind of wrote everywhere. And ever since then, that has been my name and my brand and my life, and kind of it just kind of fit. Like right when I heard it and he was like, you should take the name Typoe. I always wanted to use that name. And I was just like, I think that's my name. And I was just like, it was just like one of those moments in life where things just work, which happens to me a lot. Like these moments just happen and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm in the right place at the right time. And all right, I'm just going to keep going and see where it goes.
All right. So that's if you're in your late 30s now and you're talking about 15. So you've been working about 20 years under that name. Yeah.
I mean, professionally and like seriously, like in the art world, it's been like, you know, because I was messing around until my early 20s. And then I think, you know, I mean, even when I was like 24, 25, like I was working, like I did construction for a little bit until I got fired. I worked at Don Pan at the bakery. Terrible job. I worked at West Elm for years selling furniture. You know, I did a lot of things that I didn't want, that they weren't my career goals, but I needed to do things while I'm figuring out who I am and like what my visual language is, you know, because it took a long time, because I was able, like when I was young, I could like paint my portrait, but I could also do like an abstract painting. And then I would do some surrealist painting, and like, I can kind of mimic and do anything. And like, I can think of a lot of things. So it was really hard for me to narrow in and be like, who am I? And like, I think to figure out my sort of artistic vernacular, I had to look at who I am in terms of like how I grew up, my family, my surroundings. And because those are the tools that I have in my toolbox that are going to make my work unique, because I'm one of the few artists that's born in Miami at this time with this family that went through these experiences with drugs, with school, with whatever it is. And that molded me into this person that I am now today. And I think me doing a lot of deep diving into that really led me to the balance that I have now.
Well done. I noticed some Hebrew tattooed around your neck. What's the story behind that?
Yeah, it says.
Oh, don't read Hebrew. What does it say?
Well, it says. Yeah, I'm just gonna show it and then assume that people can read it. It says, "Send blessings upon the works of my hands," And originally it was a scripture that said, "Send blessings upon the works of our hands."
I see it.
So,
Yeah.
And so it's really, it's, you know, because I use my hands. That's it. Very poetic.
Where did you get that done? Here in the States?
Yeah, I mean, all my, you know, I'm covered in tattoos. All my tattoos, I will only get tattooed by my friends. Mm-hmm. I don't like travel to like famous tattoo artists or anything like that. It's really just like my kind of crew that I grew up with. It's more of like a family sort of thing to me and like where we're from. And that's kind of like what I represent. But I'm also like that just in terms of like the city. Like I'm always very about Miami and like this sort of renaissance that's been happening here the last 10 years. And like, that's why we built the gallery here. That's why I try to do so much publicly with public art here and just do everything I can to help grow the city to be, I think, what it could be, you know, because Miami's still like a young city. Like if New York was like this sophisticated gentleman businessman that's in the library smoking his pipe, like we're like the sort of rowdy teenager that's like, I want to go out and party, you know what I mean? Right. And it's like we're slowly starting to grow up and be like, oh, that's what culture is like. Oh, that's like, you know, where it's like I grew up in a town where people would much rather spend $10,000 on bottle service at a club in one night than buy a piece of art and learn about culture. And it's like, you know, and that always made me really sad. And so that makes me want to engage in people and say like, hey, why don't you start thinking about starting an art collection? Why don't you do? So it's like, we've started a lot of young collectors and a lot of fun things. And yeah, sorry, I don't know if I cut out. Somebody was trying to call me. I'm on my phone. And yeah, and so it's really, I'm very about Miami. Like I travel a lot and I'm always doing projects and just going to fairs and being, because the conversation of the art market and just art in general and just the world is, you kind of have to be everywhere to be engaged in a real conversation. You know what I mean? Like I can't really talk about a city unless I'm going to cities all over the world and understanding how people are living. And so for me, it's important to always be engaging, but it's, you know, it's not a bad place to come back to where it's summer all year round and real estate is always good. So it's easier to buy here. And it's just, you know, you can always go to the beach. It's chill.
What's your dream city to work in to create public art for that you have not done yet?
Everywhere. I mean, I don't care. Like I don't even have a goal in terms of a place. Like I think there's projects like I want to like, you know, I want to do more things in fashion. I want to do, you know, I want to have more shows. I want to have shows every year and or every couple of years and keep doing that stuff and museum shows and installations and public art. I want to design buildings. Like I want to work with architects and design something structurally that will most literally change our landscape.
Right.
So I think like the way we build, the way we design, I feel like psychologically it adds or takes away to our happiness, right? So it's like, are we thinking about these things as we're designing our neighborhoods and our cities? Like most of the time, no, because, you know, we all know developers and it's like, pump it out, make it cheap, cut some corners, make money and sell the property. And that's something that I think one day when the time is right, I will do some things like that, which would be nice because it'll be like, you know, adding and leaving something I think of real value, because that's kind of the point of all of this, is to really leave something behind of value and add something to the world.
100%. How can people find your work? Do you have an Instagram or?
Yeah, Facebook? I mean, I'm on Instagram. It's just at Typoe, Typoe. And I mean, that's mostly where it is. I mean, I have a website, but I mean, do people even use websites anymore? It's like, it's just typoe.com, you know?
I think Nancy just put it in at Typoe. Okay, on Instagram. And Primary Projects is also, do you have it, is that through you or it has its own?
Yes, that's the website is thisisprimary.com.
Okay.
Visit. And then you can see all the upcoming things, and we have oh, we have an amazing show coming up in December. So we have a show up right now with Miami-based artist Kelly Breeze.
Can we go to see it, or are you closed?
No, we're open Thursday through Saturday. You can go see it, or Wednesday through Saturday rather, 11 to 5. And then you can see it on the website too. It's there for those people who are still scared to leave their house. And then we have an amazing show in December with Wade Tullier from Detroit, and he's a ceramicist, and it's going to be a really exciting show, and we're really excited. And then we're going to do we have like a surprise sort of artist that we just started working with that's going to do a number of outdoor sculptures. That's going to be really exciting, from Oregon. His name is Peter Gronquist. And so so we have like a really great group of people that I think it's going to be really interesting, especially because Art Basel officially isn't happening. And we're kind of all saying, all right, well, we're doing Miami Art Week and, Design Miami Fair. And there's still a lot of galleries that are coming and things are happening. So we're just doing our part to kind of like kick ass and take names.
And for those of you who don't know, Miami Art Week is the first week in December. And I guess we go to your Instagram to find out where your stuff is. And, unfortunately, I think we're out of time today. But
all right. Well, that flew by.
I wanted to thank first Merle and Danny Weiss for sponsoring us today. Fabulous couple. And I really want people to go and check out your Instagram.
All right, neighbors, say it again. I unmuted.
Is that Dan Weiss? So
yes, it is.
Typoe. So those are your next projects. I really wanted to thank you for coming on. I don't see your face anymore, but
I'm here. I don't know if
there you are. Okay.
Hey.
So thank you for coming on today. It's really been a pleasure. Anything private that you're doing that you can tell us before we go?
No, it's literally all like contractually, like I'm like in the next 4 days I'll know. But people will see it soon on Instagram. It's really exciting stuff. That's all I can say.
All right, we'll have to check it out. I want to have you on again. Thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys, and thanks for everybody who supported and make this happen. And yeah, you guys are awesome. I'm looking forward to when you guys open so I can go over there and we can hang out. So
we will keep you posted.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, have a good day, and thank you everybody for joining us today at Thursdays at 3.